Castle Panic is a cooperative, castle defense style game for 2 to 6 players. In this game, you're in charge of defending a small castle in the middle of a forest clearing. Monsters are emerging from the forest and trying to overrun your castle, and it's your job to kill all of the monsters, and to make sure that at least one tower remains standing at the end of the game. Inside the box you get a deck of defense cards, cardboard monster tokens, tower and wall tokens, a tar token and fortification tokens, a 6-sided die, 6 order of play cards, and a rulebook. The order of play cards can be passed out to everyone as quick references for how the turn works. The same order of play is printed on 2 of the corners of the game board. To set up the game, first place the board on the table. Next, put all the towers and walls on their plastic stands and place them in the middle ring with the towers inside and the walls outside like so. Next, set aside 3 goblin, 2 orc, and 1 troll tokens from the pile of monster tokens. Put the pile somewhere that everyone can reach it, making sure that all the tokens are flipped face down. Next, place one of the monster tokens that you set aside in each section of the archer ring. The rulebook says that the players can choose which monster goes in which ring during setup, but I prefer to randomize their placement. Position the tokens so that the biggest number is pointed towards the castle. These numbers represent the health that the monster has remaining. Next, shuffle the rest of the cards and then deal them out to each player. Use the chart on page 3 of the rulebook to determine how many cards each player gets. In this video, I'll be giving all the examples as if there were 2 players. All of the cards may be kept face up so that everyone on the team can see them. Make sure that all of the other components are nearby, and then you're ready to get started. Determine who will go first by rolling the die, or using any other method you prefer. Play will pass to the left if you have more than 2 players. On your turn, follow the steps on the order of play card. On each of the players' first turns, they can skip step 1, since all of the players will already have their maximum hands drawn. On subsequent turns, you should draw cards until you have the maximum hand size. In this example, that would be 6 cards. If there aren't enough cards left, shuffle the discards to form a new draw deck. For step 2, you may discard one of your cards and draw a new one. This is optional, but you can't draw a new card if you don't discard one first. For step 3, you have the option to trade cards with another player. In a 2 to 5 player game, you can only trade 1 card per turn, but in a 6-player game you can trade 2. You can't just give someone a card during step 3, it must be a trade. During step 4, you play your cards. You can play as many or as few as you like. There are 3 main types of cards. 1. Attack cards, 2. Building cards, and 3. Special cards. Most of the attack cards are archer, knight, and swordsman cards. These cards usually also have a color assigned to them. If you want to attack a monster, you need a card matching the color and type of the ring that the monster is in. You can never attack a monster that is in the forest ring, and you can only attack monsters that are in the castle ring if you have a card with this tower symbol on them. There are also hero cards which can attack any ring, and there are any color cards that can attack in any color. The archer, knight, swordsman, and hero cards will each deal 1 damage to the monster you choose to attack, and then the card is discarded. When you deal a damage, turn the monster token so that the next number is pointed towards the castle. If it was already at 1, remove the token and place it in a monster discard pile, or if you'd like to keep score, give it to the player that killed it. If you have brick and mortar cards, they can be used to build walls. You need 1 of each to build a wall. Discard them together, and then place 1 of the previously destroyed walls anywhere on the line between the swordsman and castle rings. You can't build any walls if all 6 are still standing, and you can only build 1 wall per section. While you can't double layer your walls, you can make them stronger by using the Fortify Wall card. Discard the card and then take 1 of the fortification tokens and place it on a wall section of your choice. You can't fortify a tower or a missing wall, and you can't have more than 2 fortified walls at any given time. There are a number of other special cards. They each have text on them explaining what they do, so I won't go into detail here, but I will talk about the 3 cards with the tower symbol on them. These 3 cards are the only cards that can be used on a monster inside of the castle ring. They can also be used outside of it, but they're the only ones that can be used inside. Okay, that's all for now. Once you've finished playing your cards, your turn is over. You don't draw any new cards until your next turn, so move on to step 5. During step 5, all of the monsters move one ring forward. If there's a wall in front of the monster, the wall is destroyed and the monster takes 1 point of damage. If a wall is fortified, the fortification is destroyed instead of the wall, and the monster takes 1 point of damage. If the monster survives, it will stay in the swordsman ring until its next turn. If the castle kills the monster, nobody gets to keep the token, so it goes into the monster discard pile. If a monster moves into a space with a tower, the tower is destroyed and the monster takes 1 damage. Basically, the monsters are just hurling themselves at the castle. If they run into a piece of it, they destroy it, but it topples down on top of them at the same time. If the monster is already inside the castle ring when they're supposed to move, they move 1 section to the left. Every time they run into a tower, they destroy it and take 1 damage. The walls have no effect on monsters inside of the castle ring. Towers can't be rebuilt, and if you lose all 6, the game is over. The players lose. Once you're done moving all the monsters, it's time to make more monsters. During step 6, draw 2 monster tokens from the draw pile. Roll the 6-sided die for each one, and place them in the forest ring corresponding to the number rolled. Once they're both on the board, flip them over. If they're regular monsters, no further action is required. However, there are a number of other things the tokens could be. 1. A boss monster. There are 4 boss monsters, and each of them have golden hit points so that you can tell they're bosses. When one of these is drawn, check the table in one of the corners of the game board to see what happens. The same table is also found in the rulebook. Resolve all of that immediately after flipping this token over. Number 2. Giant boulders. If you flip over a giant boulder, it immediately rolls down the section it started in towards the castle, crushing everything in its path. Remove any monster tokens in that section and discard them. The boulder only stops when it hits a part of the castle. If it hits a fortified wall, remove the fortification and discard the boulder token. If it hits a regular wall or a tower, it destroys the construction and then is discarded. If there is no wall or tower in the section the boulder started in, it then continues rolling through the opposite section, destroying the tower, fortification, or wall, whichever comes first. If there are no constructions in either section, it kills all the monsters in both of them, and then rolls off the opposite side of the board and is discarded. Number 3. Monster movers. These tokens make you move the monsters again. If the token specifies a color, only move the monsters in that color. Otherwise, you'll move the monsters in all 3 colors. Number 4. Plague tokens. If a plague token is drawn, it will say archers, knights, or swordsmen on it. If any players have cards of that type, they must discard them all. Number 5. Draw new monsters. If you flip one of these, you must draw the number of tokens shown and then resolve them the same way as the original 2. Number 6. All players discard 1 card. If you flip this token, everyone who has cards must choose 1 to discard. After all 6 steps are completed, play passes to the left and the steps are repeated. Continue playing until either all of the towers are destroyed and the players lose, or until the monster draw pile is exhausted and all the monsters are dead. If that happens, the players win. That's most of the rules for this game. It's pretty simple once you get going, but it's harder than it might look. A lot of it is based on chance, so sometimes you'll get lucky and breeze through it, but when you don't, it definitely lives up to its name. I'm going to cover some FAQs now, but if you want to skip those and just jump right in, you should know everything you need to in order to get playing. What happens when more than one monster attacks the same wall or tower? When 2 or more monsters attack a wall, only one of them takes damage from it. The players get to choose which one takes damage. The monsters still don't move on this turn regardless of the number there are. If they attack a fortified wall, the rulebook doesn't specify what happens, so you can go one of 2 ways. Either both the wall and the fortification are destroyed, and both monsters take 1 damage, or only the fortification is destroyed, and only one monster takes damage. I'll leave that decision up to you. What happens when you use drive him back, but there's a wall in the way? In this case, the rulebook is not clear, so my rule is that the wall is destroyed and the monster takes 1 damage, but it's still pushed all the way back to the forest, if it survives, of course. Is there a particular order that the monster tokens should be resolved? Yes. When you draw the first 2 tokens, roll for placement and then flip them at the same time. If one of them causes you to draw more monster tokens, resolve both before drawing any new ones. If they both cause you to draw more, draw all the new tokens at the same time, roll for placement, and resolve them all at once. The main reason this is important is because of the giant boulders and the monster movers. The boulders can't kill monsters if they're not on the board yet, so remember that all new tokens enter at the same time. And likewise, you can't move a monster if it's not on the board. But if it entered at the same time as the monster mover, it moves too. If one of the monster movers causes the monsters to move out of the path of a giant boulder, then that's the only time this is up to interpretation. In that case, I usually just resolve them in numerical order. How does scoring work? Scoring is optional, but if you want some competition between the players, you can keep all the monster tokens that you killed. At the end of the game, each token is worth 1 point per hit point. So goblins are worth 1 point, orcs are worth 2, and trolls are worth 3. All the boss monsters are worth 4 points. If the monsters are killed by destroying walls or towers, nobody gets the token. The player with the most points at the end wins. There are also some other variants and optional rules, including a solitaire variant in the back of the rulebook, so check those out for more ways to play. And that's Castle Panic. I hope you found this video helpful. As always, leave a comment down below if there's anything you'd like me to make in the future. Thanks for watching.